Chapter 238, Silver Needles Stabbing Veins, Fire Pills Burning Blood. This chapter is updated by Novels.pl. Arriving at the front door of the poisonous spider club stronghold, Zhang Yuochen looked over at the tiny courtyard in front of him. He could clearly sense the presence of Hu Minggong. This is it? He walked to the main door of the courtyard. Standing 10 feet away, he raised his arm and bent his fingers into a fist. Immediately, his genuine chi surged out of his palm, formed a transparent chi pillar and hit the door. Bang! The main door of the stronghold was directly shattered into pieces. Tens of evil warriors who ambushed behind the main door had all been sent flying off to the side by the powerful genuine chi. They fell to the ground everywhere, spreading all across the place. The broken wood pieces left puncture wounds on every evil warrior's body. Some people's brains were punctured and some were hit in the stomach. Half of them died on the spot, while the other half were seriously injured. Without sparing a glance for any of the evil warriors lying on the ground, Zhang Yuochen strode forward and entered the stronghold, heading directly to the inner courtyard. He then saw Hu Minggong, who was in the middle of recuperating. Hu Minggong was sitting cross-legged on the ground with his palms pressed together. A genuine chi hood with a diameter of 10 feet was covering him as he sat in the center of it. The genuine chi looked like light mist trapped around his body. Hu Minggong had already stopped healing the moment Zhang Yuochen entered the stronghold. He opened his eyes and said coldly, "Zhang Yuochen, you catch me up again. I thought I didn't leave any trace. Tell me, how did you find me?" Zhang Yuochen surely could not tell him his secret about martial soul. He responded faintly, "Hu Minggong, stop trying to buy yourself some time. I wouldn't give you a chance to escape today." Hu Minggong stood up and yelled, "If this is the case, one shall stand and one shall fall. Let's fight." There was a huge stone mill beside him, weighing at least a few thousand kilograms. He lifted the stone mill up with one hand and rotated his arm twice before throwing it at Zhang Yuochen. At the same time, Hu Minggong immediately turned around and fled. He did not plan to fight with Zhang Yuochen from the very beginning. Boom! Zhang Yuochen launched a palm strike that shattered the stone mill and hurried after Hu Minggong. Still trying to run? Stop here right now. Zhang Yuochen released the space domain that covered a space of 500 meters in radius, displaying the power of space freezing. Hu Minggong, who had fled 100 meters away, suddenly felt that the space around him was completely frozen. His body, as if being sealed in the icing cold, became extremely difficult for him to move. Since the pressure exerted on his body was getting stronger, he could only use the power of Blood Meridian and slammed into the void space as hard as possible. Snap! The space had been torn apart and Hu Minggong regained his freedom. However, Zhang Yuochen had already caught up in the brief moment when he was being sealed. He immediately launched a palm strike toward Hu Minggong, dragon and elephant returning to earth. Hu Minggong's eyes turned red and his spiritual blood started to swirl around rapidly. He stepped on a crimson blood wave, spun around and delivered a fist strike at the same time. Earth-shaking fist. A stirring of powerful genuine chi wave radiating out as both fist and palm clashed together. Hu Minggong coughed and spat out a mouthful of blood as he staggered backward. Zhang Yuochen landed on the ground, but he did not hesitate even for a moment before dashing forward again. The spiritual blood surging wildly in his meridians rushed toward his arm as he advanced, causing rumbling sounds to echo out. Then, he unleashed another palm strike. Elephant galloping. The intense power in Zhang Yuochen's palm formed a massive translucent palm print before his hand, letting out a loud whizzing sound. Hu Minggong could feel the mountain toppling, see draining force of the palm print even before it reached him. It was as if he would be blown away anytime soon. Knowing this would be a tough battle, Hu Minggong's eyes shone with intense rage as he shot both fists forward with all the strength he could muster. Boom! The massive force sent Hu Minggong flying through the air, falling 10 feet away. His arms were in great pain and it felt like his bones had broken. Damn it! If I still have my black golden gloves on, you would never be able to defeat me. The fist technique Hu Minggong practiced could only unleash its full power with the help of black golden gloves. And yet, his black golden gloves was struck and shattered by the Abyss Ancient Sword long ago. Kid, you leave me no choice but to use the forbidden art. Rising to his feet, Hu Minggong then took out an 8.5 feet long silver needle and stuck them into the 8 major meridians in his body. At the same time, he took out a red pill, popped it into his mouth and quickly swallowed it down. In the briefest of moments, he seemed like he had recovered from his injuries. The flow rate of the genuine qi in his body had also doubled up. The skin on his body had turned completely black. His red eyes were ice cold, almost as if a poisonous snake itself were staring at Zhang Yuochen. Silver needles stabbing veins, fire pills burning blood. Zhang Yuochen frowned and said, "By using the forbidden art to stimulate the meridians and burn your blood, I'm afraid you will die 20 years earlier than you should." "So what? If I don't use this forbidden art, I don't even have a chance to fight," Hu Minggong responded. Indeed. Zhang Yuochen nodded and subsequently took out the Abyss Ancient Sword. His expression turned serious as he knew that the current Hu Minggong should not be underestimated, preparing himself for a fierce battle. As for Hu Minggong, since he had applied the silver needles stabbing veins, he had already returned to his heyday. Moreover, he took the fire elixir which could burn the blood in his body, making him much more powerful than his state in the heyday. It could be said that Hu Minggong was now in the actual state of a Heaven Realms warrior. Of course, there was a time limit for using the forbidden art. If he could not kill Zhang Yuochen within 2 hours, the power of silver needles stabbing veins and fire pills burning blood would eventually disappear. By that time, he would become very weak, offering a chance for Zhang Yuochen to slaughter him freely. However, Zhang Yuochen had a feeling that Hu Minggong was trying to delay the fight. Therefore, he did not want to waste any more time but to kill him as fast as he could in order to avoid any changes. "Zhang Yuochen, it's time for you to experience my real power." Hu Minggong laughed out loud. He flew forward at a top speed of 280 meters per second and appeared in front of Zhang Yuochen just as soon as his voice rang out in the air. Earth-shaking fist. The powerful fist strike unleashed was accompanied by a strong gust of wind. Since Hu Minggong's speed was too fast, Zhang Yuochen did not have enough time to dodge the attack. He could only block his fist strike with his sword. Boom! A massive outpouring power from the sword surged toward Zhang Yuochen's arm and sent him flying through the air. Hu Minggong immediately launched the second and the third fist strike even before he could land on the ground. He did not spare a chance for Zhang Yuochen to retaliate by delivering 49 fist strikes in a row, completing an entire series of fist technique. Boom! Zhang Yuochen was sent flying backward and had no idea how far he went. All the houses and buildings on the street were knocked to the ground. His hair, body, and face were covered in dust and ash, looking unkempt and messy. Luckily, Zhang Yuochen was not wounded as he was protected by the space domain as well as clad in the ice fire killing armor. He just looked a bit rough and disheveled. After sending out 49 fist strikes, Hu Minggong paused for a moment for recovery. While Hu Minggong was resting, Zhang Yuochen took advantage of the opportunity to attack. He thrust up from the ground, flew up into the air and activated the genuine qi in his body before slashing his sword down. As soon as Hu Minggong lifted his head up, he could only see a dazzling sword light descended from midair, like a river composed by a wisp of sword breath. He spread his arms wide to condense the genuine qi at his palms. He brought his hands together, hoping to catch Zhang Yuochen's sword with bare hands, and surprisingly, he did it. Bang! The ground beneath Hu Minggong shook violently. Then, it cracked in all directions and eventually split apart, causing a muddy wave to sweep over the ground, rushing off to the sides. The smoke and dust slowly dispersed. The area within 10 meters radius had sunk almost 1 meter below the ground, forming a massive hole. "Kid, is this what you've got? I can catch your 9th level genuine martial arms with bare hands. If I were to have a 9th level genuine martial arms with me, I will be able to kill you with one hit." Hu Minggong chuckled. Still holding the sword with both hands, he leapt into the air and hovered directly above Zhang Yuochen. Then, he slammed his foot down. Zhang Yuochen shook his head gently. He released his hands from the sword's handle all of a sudden and let the sword fall to the ground. At the same time, he swung an arm toward the void space. Space crack. Hu Minggong's expression flickered as he felt a sense of imminent danger. However, he could not figure out where it came from. Phew! Suddenly, the void space in front of Hu Minggong vibrated faintly, and tiny cracks began to appear. Then the cracks joined together and transformed into a 3-feet-long crack. There was a chaos between the cracks. A strong, devastating suction force poured out from the crack. Even with a cultivation level at the heaven realm, Hu Minggong was not able to resist it. The space crack was like a massive mouth of void space, swallowing Hu Minggong's head down within seconds. Boom! A headless body fell off from the midair. Fresh blood was seen pouring from the neck, giving off nauseating smells. Zhang Yuochen stretched out his arms. The Abyss Ancient Sword, who was held by Hu Minggong, quivered in between his hands before it shot up into the air and eventually fell into Zhang Yuochen's hands. The power of the space crack is indeed magnificent. Even their warrior of the heaven realm couldn't stand up to its power. I wonder how powerful it's going to be if I were to practice the space collapse. Zhang Yuochen looked at the dead body on the floor. He crouched down and removed the spatial ring from Hu Minggong's finger. The spatial ring was filled with treasure. Other than pills and genuine martial arms, he stored a large number of spiritual crystals and some silver coins. The classes of pills and genuine martial arms were not high. He only had a 3rd-class pill and a 6th-level genuine martial arms at best. In terms of a warrior of the heaven realm, he was too poor. However, the number of spiritual crystal he owned had surprised Zhang Yuochen. With more than 9,200 crystals, they could certainly be piled up into a small crystal hill. On top of that, there was also some good quality medium-level spiritual crystal and some high-grade spiritual crystal. These crystals definitely worth more than 10 million silver coins, which could be considered as a small fortune. Why did Hu Minggong carry such a large amount of spiritual crystal with him? It should be noted that almost every warrior would convert spiritual crystal into silver coins and deposit them into the martial market bank. Most of the evil warriors in the black market, too, would usually have another identification so that they were able to deposit their assets into the martial market bank instead of carrying it around all the time. In fact, the black market had also established their own bank. However, the black market had many internal conflicts and divisions, therefore, their bank could not be compared to the martial market bank. They were often closed down due to bankruptcy. As a result, the evil warriors of the black market mostly preferred to store their wealth in the martial market bank instead. Although it was risky, they did not need to worry about the bankruptcy of the martial market bank. It was also very convenient for them to withdraw money as every county was sure to have a branch of the martial market bank. Of course, once the martial market bank discovered their real identity, their accounts would be blocked and their assets in the bank would be frozen. Comments 3. Roan 14 Roan 14 Roan 14 Roan 14 exp. As onion the battle is quick. But the info dump about banking system